everybody. This is Diane. Welcome to the season finale of Walking Dead as interpreted by the lovely housewives at Biters.
And this is Jadis, but you can call me Anne.
Which was quite the surprise, was it not?
Yeah, but leave it to her to have some totally normal name that she's like, no, I'm just going to be Jadis.
Now I'm convinced that she stole it from the Chronicles of Narnia. I am.
Oh.
So, how'd
Wrath.
you rate it? What'd you think?
Um,
Yeah, so season 8, episode 16, we have come so far, and it was titled Wrath.
yeah, it really should have been titled, because I think that's kind of how a lot of people feel. I won't say most people. The internet has a consensus that it was awful. A couple of former podcasters are of the consensus that it was terrible and they're done with the show. And a lot of viewers were like,
What just happened?
yeah, like that. We were supposed to come to an end to All Out War, and I just don't feel like there was much of an end to the end.
So I have to tell you, although I thought it was a little bit of an anticlimax, there is part of me that really liked it, and there's part of me that's really conflicted.
There was a lot to like, and there was a lot to be like, I would have gone in a different direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I gave it a 4.4 bad reload.
Oh my god, you rated it really high.
Well, I rated it just a little bit higher than last week's episode worth. Just because I do feel a very big sense of satisfaction that the war is over. Yeah, I don't think the fighting is done, but war is over.
This particular war is over. You're right. I don't think the fighting is done because I think there will be other groups. There's always going to be other groups that we have issues with.
Well, look at our own history of not just the U.S., but the world itself. Anytime a country fights or a particular set group of people fight with each other, Northerners, Southerners, Indians, what were we called? Puritans? Although it wasn't Puritan.
I'm flowing with your interesting interpretation of American history. Keep going.
It's just anytime any group fights with another group and then peace is declared, there are still some hurt feelings on both sides, and we kind of see that on our side with Maggie and a couple other people. And you've got to know that there's a couple of saviors that are like, I still hate them. So, I mean, everything looked very, very peaceful and loving and happy, and we're going to help each other get through this and rebuild. But there's a couple people back there sharpening up some sticks. Like, they're still flying the savior flag, and the palace intrigue is not over with.
No, it's just going to take on a different shape.
It is, but we are done with war, and I have a very big sense of satisfaction, even though Negan's not dead. I'm okay with where we're at. I'm very curious about where we're going, so yeah, I gave it a 4.4. What was your rating?
Well, I didn't rate it quite as high. I gave it a 3.9 out of 5 modicums of phooey for a faux kablooey.
I'm glad you had to say that.
Oh my god. Can you hear my husband yelling in the background?
Yeah.
Good Lord. He had one job and he is completely failing.
If you didn't say it was your husband, I would have just said you had it on a news channel and it was a pundit.
No, he can't manage himself or the dogs tonight. Dear God. I'm going to put us on hold for just a minute because this is ridiculous. Hold on. Dude, you had 2 jobs.
Am I talking to
2 jobs.
Am I talking to
you and Juliet, 2 jobs. Jesus.
So I didn't even talk over that interlude. I'm just gonna let that one lie there.
No, I think I may just leave it as well.
Leave it in. We'll leave it in.
We'll leave it in. Where were we before we were so rudely interrupted?
Oh, you had given it a 3.9, which is kind of a low rating for you, I think.
And I actually feel like it got a little bit higher with my rewatch.
Really?
Yeah, really.
I was like, I got very meh on my rewatch. Like, I maintained my rating, but I'm just, it felt too frantic and too disjointed. It was very cut up. We cut from here to there, and we were doing a lot in. They didn't even make it in an extended episode.
So it certainly felt for the end of All Out War, like it was like, okay, everybody gets like holed up in this valley and they're trapped, and all of a sudden the saviors are all there, and then kablam!
Yeah.
Kablooey! Faux kablooey!
Yeah. Yeah, it was very... I feel like they could have stretched this out into 2 episodes, and there on comicbook.com there was an article that said that Scott Gimple said that a lot of stuff did wind up on the cutting room floor, and I'm like, why did you leave it there? Put it back in. Leave it in.
They don't have to do that. This is The Walking Dead.
We could have done 17 episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, that would not have broken anyone's hearts. It felt very frantic and disjointed. And I forget where I read it, but from season 8, episode 1 to episode 16 in the Walking Dead universe, it's only been 20 days.
So we basically have gone through All Out War in what, 35, 40 days?
3 weeks, yeah.
Well, no, because if we consider the beginning
Season
of All
7.
Out War to be the beginning of season 7,
Right.
I mean, let's just say for symmetry's sake, that's what it was.
Yeah. Like 2 months max. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was for dragging it out this long. This was like we have to cram everything into this one episode. Just cut here and cut there, and we'll be here, and then we're gonna go over the hill, and it's gonna be done.
That's kind of unfortunate.
It is, and like I said, I'm happy with kind of where we ended up, sort of, but not really how we got there.
Well, it sells our story short, and it sells our characters short.
It does. It does. So the title of the episode? Wrath?
Well, so obviously my
mercy prevailed over my wrath.
Thank you. My mercy prevails over my wrath. Yep.
Right. So don't have to read into that one too much.
I didn't even feel like it was particularly wrathful.
No, it was like the opposite of wrath. It was like, all right, everyone, just go home. Not we're going to mow you down because you were saviors. Like, all right, just go live your lives now.
Well, and I do cover this in my good, bad, and ugly. I have some things to say about kind of why it was not wrathful, or why there may have been a misunderstanding of the whole, like, what this really was.
Okay.
So our numbers, Worth, which was last week's episode, was actually, let's see, first in Live Plus 3 for the 18 to 49 group, but second overall in the Live Plus 3. The initial views, it was number 2 behind the NCAA championship. So it had 6.67 million views on the same day, which we're basically looking at season 1 finale numbers.
And remember when, like, season 1, everyone's like, this is a juggernaut. Like, it's got the highest ratings ever. Right. And now we're like, these ratings suck.
Well, and it's still second, right? And it's still number 1 in 18 to 49 in Live Plus 3. But it's kind of like, wow, we're back down at season 1 numbers.
But those were crazy numbers at the time.
At the
So
time.
you can only compare the Walking Dead numbers to the Walking Dead numbers. So that's a feat unto itself.
Well, so at any rate, they gained quite a bit in Live Plus 3 overall. They gained a little over 3 million views. So it was up at 9.96 million views in Live Plus 3. So still respectable. I mean, nearly 10 million views.
And I think that's really been standard since season 7, episode 1, when they killed Glenn, and everyone's like, "I'm not watching anymore."
Well, we got some feedback from Brian. I got some feedback from Brian, and he said, I think the writers and producers got scared by the "it's too violent" from the season 7 opener.
Yeah, but they can have Jerry say the S word like 4 times in a row.
Right. But I think Brian's right. I think that they got a little bit gun shy, as it were.
Yep.
A little bit bat shy, as it were.
Yeah, I definitely think that has factored in to the petering out.
I mean, I'm a bitter end girl. I'm going to watch this until the bitter end.
Oh, yeah. Even if it's hate watching like we did for the first 3 seasons of Fear.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm in it till the end. I'm ride or die at this point.
And I'm totally not hate watching. I still love it, but it's kind of like... And there were actually, one of the reasons I'm so conflicted about this episode is there were moments in this episode that were moments reminiscent of things that I loved. Like the end where Rosita and Tara go to Sanctuary and they're like, "We're here to help you rebuild."
I love that.
I did too. And it was a reminder of those building relationships that I loved basically through season 5.
And, our world is getting bigger. So.
Right. And Rick really does talk about the new world, and I think that we're going to see more of that in season 9.
Right. But I really do hope that they kind of focus in on, I really miss Daryl. I miss Daryl. Like, I'm convinced they're paying him by the word at this point.
Well, I'm not sure how I feel about the whole scenario that's working out there, but I'm sure we'll talk about that more too.
We will talk about that.
So, writers were Scott Gimple, Angela Kang, and Matthew Negrete. And I just decided, as last time, I would highlight the things that I really liked that they had done. So Scott Gimple, I would have to say, probably still my favorite episode that he did for The Walking Dead was The Grove. I would have to say that my favorite episode that Angela Kang has done thus far was Coda, which is the episode where Beth died.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, in honor, I'm looking up at it right now, I have the print that Kirk did as a memoriam to her on my wall. And then Matt Negrete, I would have to say that my favorite of his that he did was The Well, which is where we really get introduced to the kingdom through Carol's eyes and Morgan's eyes. And it's the first time we see Shiva.
Ah.
So director was Nicotero, and I picked What Happened and What's Going On as my favorite of his episodes so far. Which is the episode where Tyrese dies.
Aww.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty morbid. All of my favorite episodes have a death. So.
Well, and here I am going on about nobody died. I wanted somebody to die, and nobody died.
Hence the reason you rated it a 4.6, and I rated it a 3.9.
And then, I'm like, oh, I wish that person wouldn't have died.
So, and what I wanted to say about the episode that Nicotero directed that I brought up is that Scott Gimple actually wrote that, and he based it on, he used as source material a book called Visions, Trips, and Crowded Rooms, which is a book about, death experiences that people have, and it was pretty fascinating. I finally read it, probably a couple months ago.
I was going to say, have we talked about this before? Because
We
it sounds
have.
really familiar.
Yeah, and it's about the visions that people have when they're dying of, their brother-in-law showing up and telling them about heaven, or their mother showing up and saying everything's going to be okay.
Or it's not your time, go back.
Right. Not so
Don't
much
go
though.
into the light, Carolyn.
Not so much with this though, because these are people that are really actively dying. And then trips, people talk about taking a trip. So lots of times if you're working with a patient who is actively dying, they'll talk about packing for a trip or making plans for going on a trip. And it's a metaphor for death.
Okay. I was like, are they serious or...
No, it's a metaphor for death. Okay. And then crowded rooms is usually they end up with a room crowded full of people who have gone before them, who are basically waiting for them to cross over, and they'll talk about that.
I would have said crowded rooms would have been the crowded room when all the family and friends come to say goodbye, but it's just the opposite. No,
and when you think about it, I mean, Tyrese had a crowded room. He had Beth, he had Lizzie, he had Mika.
Yeah.
So... Anyway, it was a fascinating book. It's right up my alley. I love stuff like that. And I really did love that episode. And I'm still heartbroken that Tyrese died the way that he did.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my wine glass. So our featured cast member, I thought he was right up your alley, little sister.
And we were right. We were spot on. I was ready to pass over this episode having a featured cast member just because there was already so much to talk about, and we were really we're really stretching. We're starting to stretch unless they start introducing more people.
Which I think we're going to have more people to talk about next season.
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be some, maybe some people in the Savior's compound or some people from Oceanside that we'll introduce, or maybe a helicopter pilot.
Oh, whatever. Speaking of which, I'm just saying now, and I'm kind of springing it on you and springing it on the guests, or on the folks who are listening, but I think Althea from Fear is going to be our cast member tomorrow.
Ah, okay.
So just remember Al is the person you're going to focus on.
I thought you were going to say something about the helicopter pilot in Fear the Walking Dead, and I'm like, shh, I haven't actually watched yet. So we get to keep Diane on script on this show.
That's
because
right.
I haven't watched Fear the Walking Dead yet.
No.
So.
I'm going to hardly say anything at all about Fear. In fact, that might be the only thing I say about Fear. But let's talk about Colin McAuliffe, who is Alden, a part of the POW Saviors.
I would have said Callan McAuliffe.
Didn't I say that?
I think we enunciate it slightly differently. You're Northern Alaskan. I'm Southern Alaskan.
Oh my God. So he's an Aussie. So he's another one with an accent. If we really heard him talk outside of the Walking Dead.
Okay, so I watched a couple of YouTube interviews with him.
Of course you did.
Of course I did, and I have to say, immediately when he started speaking, I don't know what it was. One of those where I was like, I can't. If I didn't know he was Australian, I wouldn't know he was Australian. He just has an accent, and he sounded like a young Sean Connery. Not even joking.
Really? Ooh.
It was very, very interesting. Even like the cadence of his speech and the tone in his voice, and just he sound like I could have closed my eyes. And it was a young Sean Connery. I mean, it was uncanny. I don't know if he was doing it on purpose or just that he's lived outside of Australia for long enough that his accent's kind of muddled, or I don't know what's going on, but yeah, it was very funny. Like, all
I have to say is nice.
He is adorable. He's like, what, 23, 24?
Is he? He looks like a baby.
He is a baby. I'm thoroughly convinced. Normally I don't go and read the biographies on IMDb, but there's not a lot out there for him. He's just kind of broken out. His breakout role was in Flipped, which is a Rob Reiner film in 2010. And from then on, before that, he was in a couple of things in Australia, but that was his big Hollywood breakout role. The other one that he's got a big credit for, he was in The Great Gatsby.
Right, he played the young Gatsby.
Yes, he did. Like one episode of Homeland, and then, a lot of little things, and then boom, Walking Dead.
But here's what killed me, okay? I'm going to be totally honest with you. When he was like, okay, I went to Afghanistan, and I drank the milk of a camel and ate the meat of a horse.
Yep.
And then when he was like, he's well-versed in outdoor survival skills and can make a mean suspended A-frame, I was like, oh my god! He's your soulmate! He may be too young for you, but he's your soulmate.
What's funny is he is super cheeky. I find him so charming, and I'm convinced that his IMDb bio was written like by his mom, with him standing over her shoulder.
Going, no, Mom, say that.
I think he was being very self-deprecating in his IMDb profile, and his mom was kind of putting a cutesy spin on it. So one of the things on his IMDb profile that I thought was just hilarious, that I think either he wrote, his mom wrote, or a funny little sister wrote, was he's a musician and a vocalist and plays an unusual number of obscure and sometimes unpleasant instruments to varying levels of competency.
Oh, that was totally Mom.
And they list a bunch of them, and then it says, Callan is good at imitating voices and accents, which can sometimes be offensive, but is usually endearing.
That was totally Mom.
Yeah, so there's just a bunch of, and there's some really, deep, his great-great-grandfather was the ambassador to blah, blah, blah. So I really think that somebody in the family wrote the IMDb profile and was being funny on it. And they succeeded, but I normally don't read IMDb profiles, but that one was kind of worth the read. So, like I said, he's very cheeky. He's very charming. His Instagram is very funny.
Look, I'm still totally shipping him and Maggie.
And you are not the only one that had that thought. And I've kind of, because he's so much younger than her, I'm like, okay, so she's a cougar now. And of course she's pregnant and they're at war, and it was not at the top of my mind, but he's
totally making pathetic baby eyes at her.
Oh, and at the end when he was like, yeah, I've been reading The Key to a Future or whatever the book is, and he's like, I can do these things, and blah. I could totally there was shades of baby Glenn, Glenn back in season 1, 2, where it was just, he was so hopeful and so innocent. Yeah. So you're not the only one. And so do you know what character the scuttlebutt is that he's replacing?
I can't remember who she had a relationship with in the comic book.
So it's a guy named Dante. And apparently Dante becomes a larger character. So everyone that I've seen talk about, they're shipping, let's see, Malden, Aggie, one of those. They're saying that they think that Alden's character is going to be Dante's character in the comics.
I think so too.
Yeah. Not entirely age appropriate, but not robbing the cradle. So
who cares? He seems old enough.
He does, and he's giving googly eyes to Maggie. So,
dude, the apocalypse ages you.
True. You have to grow up fast,
right?
Or die,
or cry and die.
So, yeah, there really wasn't a lot out there on him, which is why I went to the tried and true IMDb profile. Yeah, he's very, very funny. He seems to be very happy-go-lucky in his career, to the point that, he even admits to the point of laziness that when he auditions for things, he doesn't even read what he's auditioning and the script until he gets into the audition. And one of the reasons why, I mean, there is kind of a method to his madness. It's not entirely out of laziness. He says that if he reads something too many times, he gets bored of it and it's not fresh, and he wants to be spontaneous in his character, you know. And so I think that's kind of what he brings to Alden a little bit is, you know, there may be some ad-lib lines, you know, there because they don't actually get to the entire scripts. So
really,
the lesser characters, when they have an app actually on their phone, it's a coded app, and when it's time for them to like get parts of their scripts, they get little bits of their scripts, their lines in context of the scene, so that they can't slip any detail or anything, and they have to log into this app with their own profile. So it's hardcore secretive stuff. I mean, I don't think the U.S. government has this level of secrecy.
They probably don't.
No,
I'm guessing not.
They need to learn a few things from the Walking Dead's like script people. Like it's a crazy level of security. So
that is hilarious.
Yeah, so he doesn't really know. He doesn't ever get a full script. He doesn't know what's going on in the episode aside from his little small part lines.
Sorry, you are now hearing my ancient printer.
Which it's actually good for him because, like I said, he doesn't like to read too far ahead in things because he likes to be spontaneous with it, and he's a bit lazy in his own words.
Well, I'm definitely growing to love his character, and I like the way that he keeps kind of pushing at Maggie.
I really do too, and I also find that he's a very good advocate for the ex-saviors, I guess is what I'm going to call them.
The other saviors, right?
Yeah, the saviors who don't want to go back to Sanctuary, you know. They want to make a life in Hilltop because, you know, like he told Tara, he's like, I'm with you even if you're not with me, you know? So, yeah. Like I said, there wasn't much out there. He's an up-and-comer. I think The Walking Dead is going to be good for him.
Yeah, and we'll definitely see more of him in season 9.
Yes.
Which is cool.
Especially if he's going to take over for Dante from the books. Which
I think he will.
At least in the respect that we're shipping him and Maggie.
Well, I mean, they're kind of setting it up. It's kind of hard to miss.
Right. Gotta love those pregnant chicks. You know they give out.
Totally pheromones, man. So for Whisperer's Corner...
Yep.
I did look to see if there was any resolution in terms of Maggie coming back, and I didn't find a thing.
No, but they're going to have to do something because they're setting her up to be kind of major.
Yeah.
So pay the woman. Yeah. So you had something from Phil on Whisperer's Corner.
Yeah, so we're getting submissions to Whisperer's Corner now, which I think is totally cool. So Phil submitted a thing that basically said that Morgan Lenny James has all but said that he's going to end up back at Walking Dead.
Right.
So I'm going to go into that article. When Fear the Walking Dead returns on AMC tonight, fans will be eagerly tuned in to the season premiere following sister show The Walking Dead's season 8 finale. Of course, Fear's 4th season holds a bit of promise to it, with the spinoff now featuring the crossover character Lenny James as Morgan as he links up with Team Madison. However, the actor believes that in due time, his character will once again return to The Walking Dead. It's out in the open that Morgan meets up with his new crew in Texas, with Fear jumping ahead in time at least for part of its storyline this season, as fans have predicted. This also has left many speculating how he'll leave Rick's camp after a grueling season which saw Morgan embrace his violent side against Negan's saviors. When asked about him and Rick meeting up again, he said to Hollywood Life, I don't think the story about the relationship between Rick and Morgan is over yet. Both men have clashed over leadership of Rick's people over the course of season 8, which ultimately claimed Carl's life and saw Rick contemplating a truce with Negan. As for both franchises crossing over in the immediate future, he added, is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? I'd have to vote no on that one. I don't see the point in that. I think it's more likely that the universe would expand more rather than reduce itself back down to just one show. But that's only me speaking as Lenny. That's not me speaking with any knowledge because they only give me as much as I'm allowed to have, and that's above my pay grade. However, it turns out it's clear enough, at least for part of its third season, that Fear's timeline will ultimately catch up with that of its sister show, meaning that all parties could well cross paths with each other. So
that came to us. That was an article on CBR.com. Yeah.
So it sounds like he'll come back.
And that's kind of par for the course for Morgan's character. He kind of drifts in and out of Rick's story.
Which is okay. I'm okay with that.
And now that they've killed Carl, I think it would be kind of cool to have Morgan be the last man standing. And it would kind of fulfill the whole I can't die thing.
But he nearly came. Well, no, never mind.
Oh.
Wah, wah, wah. Never mind. I didn't say that. Didn't say that out loud.
I will watch soon. I have just been so pressed for time.
I get it. Bandit's 8th birthday and all that.
Yes. My baby boy. So, I have a little bit of groveling corner.
Oh, you do?
And it's I'll kind of touch on it a little later too, but Diane was so right. I did not catch it. I was so wrong. Like, Eugene for the win.
It was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Oh, like I was like the Grinch. My heart grew like 4 times the size. I was so happy. But I'll point out something a little later, too, that I'm like, that's interesting.
Okay.
But it really did make me happy to see Eugene back in the fold, and that they would not have won without him. They wouldn't have won without a lot more casualties.
No, I'm really, really, really hoping that it turns out to be an okay thing for him.
We'll see. Something he said, I was like, that's interesting. Anyway, so that was my groveling corner. I totally missed it. Diane was right on the nose. I grovel at your feet.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh. So should we get into this?
Yeah.
What was your good?
So my good was actually Rick hearing about how Carl died.
Ooh.
I think that was really classic, like, relationship building, like we've seen in Walking Dead in the past, and that was one of the things that I did like about this episode, is that they really spent time trying to develop some relationships. So I feel like there was some, I don't know if healing is quite the right word, but there was a drawing closer between Rick and Sadiq.
And did you find how they shot that scene interesting?
With the mirrors again?
With the mirrors
yes.
again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what brings Rick to his big decision about Negan, is that he once again sees himself in a mirror, and sees himself in a mirror as held up by Carl.
And I my rewatch, I noticed that. I was like, I wonder if his Sadiq had not said what he said, and in the way he said it. I mean, if he had just described how Carl died and what happened, but it was so poignant, and Sadiq, just put a fine point on the fact, how Carl was just such a good soul and everything. I don't think things would have ended the way they ended. So I think that was the pivotal scene where he decided life over death.
So I wrote down a couple of things. You know, he died paying respects to a woman he never knew. And the people that we lost, all that's left of them is their ideas. And I really felt like in this circumstance, he was pointing out to Rick that what's left of Carl are his ideas about how things can move forward.
Definitely.
So I really liked that. I thought that was really great. I'm glad that Rick finally opened to hearing what had happened. I think that's a really important part of Rick moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to mean that he and Sadiq actually have more of a relationship than they do currently.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to start us out by outing us.
If the podcast seems a little herky-jerky, kind of like the episode of Walking Dead was, it's because we're having technical difficulties, and these are segments spliced together.
So this will be the second time we've attempted, actually the third time, really, that we've attempted to complete the podcast. Take 3! Do it live! So I just finished rambling about my good, or at least I finished rambling about my good last night.
And we had actually gotten all the way through, like almost through Rotting Potpourri when we realized we weren't recording anymore. So we don't like to rehearse, but unfortunately this is going to be take 2 on the entire rest of the episode because, I don't know, solar flares, Russia.
But, you know, the beautiful thing about kind of having a rotten memory after a brain injury is that you don't always necessarily remember everything. So
reminds me of the movie Waiting, where the guy's like, the really great thing about having Alzheimer's is I get to meet new people every day.
I'm not quite that bad, but there are days that it feels that way. Trust me.
I do that. I'm like, I swear we've talked about this before. Like, there's a glitch in the Matrix.
Right?
Yeah, there definitely is this time because, yeah, like, I don't know if we're being hacked by Russia or Scientology or Cambridge Analytica.
Hail Xenu, just to be safe.
Or maybe a combination of all 3, but it's probably Russia.
I don't know. Scientology's got my back.
Right? With as much crap as we've talked about on Preacher.
Right. Exactly.
It's probably Scientology. So, yes, I'm going to restate my goods. It didn't record well, so my good for the episode was the Saviors surrendering. And when I first watched, I was like, they would never surrender. The Saviors are kind of, do or die, everything for Negan. But on the second rewatch, I was like, I had seen an article that said that they had to be running low on Saviors at this point in the war with Rick taking them out all the time. And so a lot of these Saviors were probably the production guys. They were the floor workers. They weren't the trained soldiers, and they were probably starving and exhausted from war. And they were just ready to give up and not follow Negan anymore. I mean, after 2 hours of Negan being trapped in that trailer with Father Gabe, they were ready to revolt with no air conditioning. So, I think they saw all of the guns blow up in everyone's hands. They were wounded and starving and just exhausted. And they gave up, and, all the better for them that they did. But it took the rewatch to realize that, those really weren't saviors. Those were the saviors kind of slaves. And yeah, they had a few of the,
kind of top tier.
Yeah, the generals, but not very many. And by then, a lot of them had been taken out anyway. 'Cause I think we saw, what's her name?
We saw Regina get taken out, but I was going to ask you, were you surprised that Laura was kind of the person who called it?
I was. I really, really was. Because she had just ratted out Dwight, and, she had her one-on-one with Negan, and she had, hamstringed both Dwight and Simon. And so she was probably riding high on that. But I don't know, maybe after seeing, Negan and Rick fight and Rick start to get the upper hand, she was done.
Well, but I think that they surrendered and then Negan and Rick fought.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, Negan was on the run. That cat ran out of lives. Almost. He has one left in him. But yeah, I think, with everything that had just gone down and having Negan on the run, I think Laura kind of knew that it was she thought that she was ready to die for Negan, and she wasn't. So that was my good. Is I completely, on the second rewatch, on the rewatch, I completely believed the Saviors surrendering because of that fact that they were just starving and exhausted and untrained soldiers. Most of them were probably wounded at that point, and they were just done.
Well, and Eugene's ploy took out such a large number of the Saviors who were there.
Right. It didn't necessarily kill them. I mean, we saw a lot of them, take some shrapnel to the head, but I don't think that necessarily killed them. And a lot of them took some wounds to the hand. So there was a lot of medical help that was necessary after that battle. But
and they don't have a doctor anymore.
No, they don't. And I'm sure that they were running low on supplies, much like everybody, but especially medical supplies during war. So yeah, that was my good.
Well, my bad was that I really felt like it was kind of anticlimactic. And I was saying to you last night, I think it's because no one really understands Rick's motivations. I mean, I've thought a lot about this, and we have seen the inner workings of what's been going on with Rick. We heard the letter. We saw him examining himself in the mirror. We saw the conversation with Sadiq.
The flashbacks with Carl. Right, yeah.
We saw kind of the calculations that he was going through when he decided to slash Negan's throat and then save Negan. I just don't feel like the people who are kind of the average people, not the Maggies, not the Jesuses, but kind of your average person, they don't see what Rick went through and they don't see the explanation. And so I kind of felt like that really made the end of All Out War kind of anticlimactic.
Absolutely. And one of the things, I don't know if we've talked about it and it recorded or not recorded.
Right. So if we're repeating ourselves, we really apologize.
The episode was only an hour long, and I feel like there was a lot missing. Again, this is the second episode this season where I felt like there was stuff that should have been said that wasn't and could have been. This could have been a hour and a half episode. This could have been a 2 episode or something like that. But I really think that they should have done what they did in the beginning of the season and gotten everyone together. And Rick did a little bit at the end after he slashed Negan's throat. He kind of, everyone go home. We're going to live better, blah, blah, blah. But I really think that he should have elaborated more and kind of gotten everyone into his headspace like they had done with Maggie and King Ezekiel and Rick there when they were hyping him up to go into battle in the beginning of the season.
I really think if he had talked about his thought process and kind of what got him to where he ended up, that, I don't know, maybe it would have been more satisfying for everyone. Maybe not Maggie, but more satisfying for everyone involved.
Right, because, again, I don't know if we talked about this previously, but one of the things when you have a war and peace is declared, not everyone is going to be ready to shake the other side's hand. There's going to be a lot of people who have a lot of hurt feelings on both sides, and they're going to want to cut somebody's throat in their sleep. And so, if everyone could just be in Rick's headspace like the viewer is, you would have people with a little bit more understanding, and maybe they would have a little more empathy and a little more patience with their new neighbors.
So I have another question for you kind of about this same sort of thing. Did it really bother you to have them kind of set Carl up as, oh, Carl's so wise. Carl's so wise. And I was like, Carl was 17.
Yeah, and if Carl, I think they made this point on The Walking Dead. If Carl hadn't died, if it had been Michonne or somebody, if no one would be listening to a 17-year-old kid about peace, But he has it's a little advantageous that he's the martyr for the cause, and so everyone is going to heed his word on war and peace.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, so, I mean, it makes sense that they were able to do it because Carl's dead, but if Carl were alive, everyone would be going, yeah, kid, whatever.
Grow up a little bit first, kid.
Well, maybe 1/3 of them would be saying that. That's all I'm saying.
We remember you eating that giant can of pudding.
I'm just saying that there's 1/3 of the country telling 17-year-olds to sit down.
You're not making any current political statements, are you?
No, I would never. This is not a political podcast. Maybe some Walking Dead politics.
There you go.
Because it all goes back to politics.
It all goes back to politics. Tip O'Neill, right? All politics is local.
Yes.
Including
definitely.
Those on The Walking Dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's very local.
So, what was your bad?
My bad was evil Maggie, Jesus, and Daryl. Now, I don't think that Maggie and Jesus and Daryl are plotting to kill Rick and Michonne. Let me be very clear about that up front. However, I think they kind of set that scene to make it look like that. We're going to show Rick and Michonne. And it was very nefarious and
they
dark.
Did make that. I was going to say they made that scene very dark.
Yeah, and I know they probably did that purposefully, but I didn't like seeing that in Maggie. I mean, don't get me wrong, Maggie has had a cold heart this season. I mean, she walked straight up to somebody and shot him in the head just to prove a point to Negan and Simon. And so I'm Dark Maggie is not bad, but I don't think evil Maggie is where we're headed, and I really didn't like that they tried to fool us into thinking that. And Daryl skulking in the shadows and Jesus being, her henchman, and I don't see it. I don't think it's going to happen, and I'm really disappointed in the way that scene played out. I think they could have done it without making it look like they were plotting to kill Rick and Michonne.
Right, like outright rebellion.
Right.
What I really see is that I think that they are going to somehow try to plot to get Negan.
Yes.
I think they're going to try to plot to get him and kill him, and then afterwards be like, Rick, see, we were right. You were right about everything else, but we were right about this.
Right. Or, they're gonna maybe not even kill Negan, maybe somehow like let him escape and have him, do what Negan does.
Kind of expose him for who he still is.
Right. And just be like, there's no saving him and we don't have enough food to feed prisoners anymore. So, yeah. So I was really disappointed in evil Maggie, Jesus, and Daryl.
I didn't like it either. It seemed actually out of character, even as shell-shocked as Maggie was, and as good as Lauren Cohan's acting was, by the way, while Maggie was losing her mind. It seemed really out of character for them to suddenly turn on Rick.
Right. Yeah. Rick and Michonne.
Right.
Michonne's only crime would be holding Maggie back while they were saving Negan and supporting Rick's decision, So I don't see it. So that was my bad. And
well,
we've already...
Oh, go ahead.
we've already discussed that we both have the same ugly. So why don't you go ahead?
So mine was actually being right about Eugene, which
Yay!
you had finished Groveler's Corner last night, and we do have that recorded. But he pretty much telegraphed it, and I felt like it wasn't a big discovery on my part, but I was also kind of proud that I figured it out.
No, I missed it, and my other half missed it, and was also in denial about it a little bit. He didn't see it. So, yeah, that was a good ugly, and I've never been so happy to be wrong. Like I'm just so happy that Eugene could come back into the fold in that way, and he really did save the day. I mean, I think Rick's side may have won without him, but there would have been a lot more casualties on both sides without him.
The only thing that I have to say that I kind of didn't like about the whole Eugene thing, and I said this to Brian, was it just really seems ridiculous to me that it was all timed all at once, that like
Right.
everybody misfired at once. And you and I talked a little bit about this last night, which is, that implies that Eugene and his group somehow had control over the order in which these rounds were loaded.
Right.
Or every round they made was bad.
Which can't entirely be, because they had already made rounds up until then. So unless he went and took out the good rounds, or, somehow sabotaged them, I don't see that every single Savior's gun's first bullet was a dud.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that I had about Eugene saving the day was when he and Rosita were talking, and Rosita's like, "Was that you?" And he's like, "Yeah." He mentioned to her that it was when he and Rosita and Daryl talked, and he got the idea from, Gabe's screw up.
Right. He was actually inspired by Gabriel.
Right. So until he talked to Rosita and Daryl, up until that point, he was still making good bullets for Negan, and he was still on Negan's side. He wasn't, maybe he was looking for a way to not be on Negan's side. I don't know. But had it not been for Daryl and Rosita kidnapping him and giving him the what for, things could have ended up very, very differently for everyone.
So what do you think it was about what Rosita and Daryl said to him that made him turn? Because they weren't exactly gentle.
No, they weren't. And I can't remember exactly what Rosita said to him, but
she did have the line about, do something good with your pathetic life, or for once do something with your pathetic life.
Right. And then he went and said that in his little inspiration speech to this.
Oh yeah, his inspirational speech.
Yeah, to the other bullet makers, so that they would push through and fulfill the order for bullets. But up until that point, our group was dead, and Negan's group was going to have all the bullets they needed to do it. So I wonder where his loyalties really lie, other than with himself, obviously.
Well, and was it Chris Hardwick or Josh McDermott on Talking who made that point that it really is all about Eugene taking care of Eugene?
I think it was Josh McDermott. I think he said that a lot this season, that, Eugene is if Eugene is anything, he is a survivor, and he will do anything it takes to survive. And I think we've actually made the point on the show before with the parallels between Eugene and Gabe, both being cowards in their survival.
Although, well, no, I was going to say that in some ways that's not true for Gabe, but Gabe crumbled pretty badly in the last episode.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, for a priest to lock out his parishioners for his own survival, I mean, that's...
But didn't you think he had gotten beyond that? I thought he had gotten beyond that in the last season.
I thought that he had gotten beyond that, and I think he thought he had gotten beyond that. But when brass came to tacks, he just couldn't, make the sacrifice of himself for the good of many.
But in the end, his plot is the reason that our people survived.
It is. And, it was funny have you seen the, they call it the butthole cam?
What?
I know, right? I immediately clicked on that article.
Are they talking about his vision?
His vision. Some of the other watchers were annoyed by the point of view of Gabriel, where it was just that little, they said it looks like the view that you would have of a camera peeking out of a butthole.
Well, that's charming.
I'm pretty sure there's a hashtag on Twitter. I haven't checked because I'm afraid of what else would come up. But, of course, I am the one that clicked on the article.
Of course you are.
Of course. So, they were talking about how they weren't sure if Father Gabriel was going to regain his sight. But in the end, when he was kneeling in the burned out church and the light was streaming through the window, I thought that was his point of view, the light streaming through the window.
Well, he said something about regaining his sight.
Right. And I don't know if that was a metaphor for I see now the error of my ways, and next time I have a chance to give up my life for people, I will, or if that was him literally regaining his sight. But yeah, so what his future holds in store, I don't know, but so far it seems to be just about every opportunity he's had, he's chickened out. So, and that's also Eugene.
So this is a bit of a spoiler. So comic book spoiler in 3, 2, 1. Fast forward if you don't want to hear it. But Eugene has a pretty big arc in the comic book still, and I'm just wondering how much of that they're going to allow him to play out in the series.
And we don't know, because they have obviously have no problem departing from the comic books completely.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I think that takes us into Rotting Potpourri.
Are we still recording?
We're still recording, believe it or not.
Excellent.
I'm not drinking tonight, and neither is Skype.
Yeah, I don't think it was the drinking. I think it's because you knit during the podcast.
I'm going to confess and say I'm doing that now. But I'm also making sure we're still recording.
Knit 1, purl 2, still podcasting. Knit 1, purl 2, still podcasting. Oh, that's funny. So what do you got?
Well, let's see. I really, really, really liked the whole thing of Jesus acting as the counselor to Morgan. I thought it was really cool. Where it was like, simple proposal, sharp end for the dead, dull end for the living, and things will get better. And then Carol's like, Jesus, I'm starting to like that guy.
And if we had a close-up on Carol, she would have been rolling her eyes. Oh, in the words of Cartman from South Park, damn hippies. It was a little too hokey for me. Just
really?
The way he said it, like his mannerisms, like, I don't know. It was such a serious time, and I realized that, that's as good a time as any to have gallows humor. But it was a little too lighthearted for me.
Well, and now you've watched Fear, so you kind of see some of the other moments that Morgan and Jesus had together.
I do. Surprise time jump from the beginning of this podcast to now. I have watched
Which we're going to podcast about tomorrow night, so people can choose to listen to the Fear one separately, should they choose to do so.
And then we'll probably re-podcast it on Thursday.
Because I'll be knitting and Skype will be drunk.
And the Russians in Scientology are hacking. Oh.
Well, what did you have?
I really wonder about the future of Gregory. So he was left in Hilltop because Tara was like, let the Saviors have him. So he's still alive and he's still a jerk. Like, where's he going? Like, what's he doing? What's his game now?
Maybe he's going to end up being another prisoner. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but he certainly is not a nice guy. I
just see him, like hamstringing Margaret and making a deal with Negan, and just.
Well, he's going to have to get to Negan, and Negan is going to be in the cell in Alexandria.
He is just such a chaotic unknown,
Well, he's a chaotic known. I mean, they all know he's a schmuck, but they have to figure out how they're going to deal with him. They can't just let him run loose.
No. I don't know what they're going to do with him.
I'm not sure that they know what they're going to do with him. They should trade him to Georgie.
I don't know what they would get in return, because that is a bad trade.
Right? I mean, she said no spoken word albums. If she's not willing to take a Jello Biafra album, there's no way she's willing to take Gregory.
They're going to have to, keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. They're going to have to tie him to somebody. Like, maybe Alden, the poor guy, is going to, have to follow Gregory around all the time just to see what he's doing. Because you can't send him to you couldn't send him to Sanctuary because he'd try to take over the place.
So I hope not, because I actually really like Alden, and yes, I admit it, I'm shipping a little bit, and I don't want them to screw up his chances with Maggie by making him babysit Gregory.
Somebody's going to have to. There is going to have to be a babysitter duty for that guy.
I think Jesus can babysit Gregory.
Oh, poor Jesus. Jesus was annoying this episode, but I wouldn't wish that on him.
You'd wish it on Alden?
Jesus was already tired of Gregory's stuff before we even met him. Right. Alexandrians. Yeah. So.
Before Margaret took over at the hillside, or the hilltop.
Maybe send him to Oceanside and have that little chick that wants to kill everyone all the time babysit him.
There you go.
Except
he'll figure out how to be the Gregory who repopulates Oceanside. And you'll have all these little Gregorys running around.
And he would let her kill everyone all the time.
Right.
He would raise a little Dexter. Only not in a good way. If Dexter was good, maybe.
Well, Dexter was heroic in his own twisted way.
Yeah. That's funny.
So do you think the huge herd that they see is going to be the thing that unites them all?
Yes. Comic book spoiler in 3, 2, 1. That's what unites them in the comic books. That's where Negan kind of comes back into play.
I really feel like I've missed out something in the comic books, and I really feel like I need to reread. Now that All Out War is over, I feel like I need to reread the whole Whisperers arc.
Yeah, so I haven't read the comic books, but I read Wiki a lot. But from what I've read, that's Negan and Rick have to pair up to beat the Whisperers. So I think that herd contained a large quantity of zombie skin wearing people, and we will see the Whisperers in spite of other articles that I have read that said Commonwealth was the next enemy.
Yeah, and see, I don't know anything about Commonwealth because I'm not that far ahead in the comics.
Right,
So,
they're brand new, and they are a political statement on our times, so yeah. We may eventually get very political.
well,
In The Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Not in the real world.
Oh, so I'm disappointed. I think we're not going to see Dwight again.
Really? I do.
I actually really feel like he was banished by Daryl, and I don't think we're going to see him again. And that bums me out because, again, another spoiler, Dwight has a big upcoming arc as well.
So here's my very bold prediction. So he's kind of like, I mean, Sherry obviously wants to reunite with him because she left a breadcrumb behind for him at their kind of meeting place or whatever, that little yellow house that said honeymoon and had the infinity sign. And so I'm gonna garner a guess and say that he needs to go where they honeymooned at, and I'm hoping that that's very local and not like Hawaii or something.
Oh my god, you're totally speaking the same language as the guys from Canada. That is so funny.
Oh, that's funny.
I know you don't listen to that podcast too, so I know that it's not like you're stealing their stuff.
So, okay, this is kind of obvious then that I really think that he's going to be like Morgan or Heath. He's going to disappear for a while, but they're coming back. And I think Sherry will have hooked up with another group because I don't think she could survive on her own for very long.
I don't think so either.
So I think she hooks up with another group and they come back because whatever. And they come back and help with the Whisperer issue that, we're probably going to have in the future, or whatever future problems that we have, as Simon would say, future problems. So I think that that's how Dwight and Sherry are going to come back in our story arc and be welcomed by everybody, including our Daryl that's being paid by the word at this point. I really hope there's more of him next season. Like old Daryl, like season 4-ish Daryl.
Yeah.
Like
Daryl who speaks.
Yeah. Yeah, and is not so hard and bitter and curmudgeon-y. And murdery, apparently. Murdery in the bad way.
They just want you to think he's murdery, remember?
Right. So speaking of Heath, are we really, really going to get him back?
I honestly don't know. I mean, there are certainly predictions and speculation that we're going to. I've got to tell you, speaking of Heath, I'm not jacked with the way that they brought Oceanside back in.
Really?
I'm okay really not.
I'm totally okay with it. Because I kind of think that that's how they would see it. Like,
I just thought it was kind of meh.
Well, I think it was too short. I don't think there was enough. It was, I mean, nobody really even had a speaking part at that point. But they were coming back to help out with All Out War, and they stumbled upon All Out, the middle of All Out War, and they were like, hey, those guys are saviors. We don't have any guns. But we just so happen to have a whole bunch of bottles of alcohol and rags. So
thanks to Enid, right? Remember, because they stopped at the distillery because of Enid, or was it Aaron who said that he wanted to make a detour?
I can't remember.
Actually, I think it was Aaron who made the detour.
But yeah, I had completely forgot about that.
I had completely forgotten about that until just now.
I just thought they had a whole bunch of leftover alcohol from, New Year's or something. But yeah, I'm sure they packed it because they did have no guns and they were going to All Out War. So what else are you going to do but Molotov cocktails?
Right. And they were clearly prepared. That was clearly going to be their mode of fighting.
Right. And kind of the whole, garbage truck at the right time to hit the opera singing truck that was supposed to redirect all the walkers at Sanctuary. They just so happened to stumble in on, the middle of all out war, right in the middle of a bunch of saviors that were marching on Hilltop. And, obviously no other Hilltoppers were around to save the day, even though they were in the woods, but they weren't on the walls or anything. So, they came in, they did what they were supposed to. They're brought back into the universe, and all will be well. I'm okay with it.
Maybe it's just more of that stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor. Maybe they had a bigger part, and we just didn't get to see it.
Yeah, I definitely think they could have stretched this episode to an hour and a half or to be continued.
I think it would have been a bad thing to cliffhanger it. I'm glad they didn't do that.
Not cliffhanger it for next season, but
like
just stretch
another
it
week.
Episode 17.
Yeah.
Or, even a 2-hour episode and just sell the extra ad time. But I know they wanted to shoehorn Fear the Walking Dead in, and then they have to do Talking Dead, and that's just really late on a Sunday night for most of us, which is why we gain half of our viewership in Live Plus 3.
It's their network. They can do whatever the heck they want.
They can. And, people don't watch TV like they used to. A lot of people don't watch live. So, but I definitely think a lot of stuff ended up on the cutting room floor that I really shouldn't have. And which, of course, makes us all go and have to buy the DVD box set extended director's cut. Right?
Well, I have to admit, I'm not so big a fan that I've bought into that. I just end up watching a lot of the episodes on Netflix over and over and over again.
Ditto. Yep. So, what happens to Lucille? Because, she's a character in her own right. And does she get put on the burn pile, or does she get hung on a mantle? Does she get Rick taunts Negan with her? It's something has to happen to Lucille.
Well,
or
so I think
just get left in the field.
I think if Rick is smart, she gets put on the burn pile. But Rick has proven to us over and over again that he's not smart. So she'll probably get propped up in a corner somewhere near Negan's jail cell, and he'll have access to her again.
Or, just out of his reach in the jail cell.
Because Negan isn't Negan without Lucille.
No. And somebody's going to take pity on him because that was his dead wife's name. And, who wants to burn his dead wife,
The only person who knows that story, though, is Anne. So...
Gabe knows it.
Does he?
Yeah, in the trailer.
Oh, did he tell Gabe that he named the bat after Lucille too?
The bat's name is Lucille, and his dead wife's name is Lucille. So I Gabe's not the brightest bulb in the box, but I think he could put that one together on his own.
I'm not sure if it was explicit enough.
Oh.
All right, so I have to tell you that I really loved seeing Rosita punch out Eugene. That made me happy.
Oh, and I immediately, the split second before she said it, I was like, that was for the puke. Because that's exactly what I would have done, too. That was for the puke.
And I liked Rosita and Tara showing up to help Laura, and it looked like Arat and the wives.
Loved that. And I loved that the wives were dressed in regular clothes and not the little black dress that Negan always made all of his wives wear.
And you pointed that out to me last night. I did not catch that. I was like, who's that redhead? Why do I recognize her?
Yeah, the redhead and the one with the long kind of curly hair were Negan's wives. And then Laura was up on the balcony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that. So I really wonder if we have another female-centric, leader-driven compound, or if maybe one of the male generals that survived has kind of taken over as their representative.
I hope we have another female-centric compound.
I do too. That would make Oceanside, Hilltop, and Sanctuary, leaving Kingdom and Alexandria to whoever.
And God knows we've got to balance it out a little bit with Rick. So having three communities that are led by women, that's balancing it out.
Yep. Definitely. Absolutely. So that is all I had for Rotting Potpourri.
I just kind of wanted to say that for me, I'm kind of conflicted about this whole episode. I mean, it was emotionally satisfying for me in a lot of ways. I'm actually satisfied that nobody died. It's been a long time since we've made it through a big episode without somebody dying.
Yeah, for me, I think that was part of the little anticlimactic bit, is that nobody died. I mean, because we were all like, oh, Jerry's going to die, or Dwight's going to die, or Tara's going to die, somebody's going to die, and nobody died. So it's so horrible. It was such a letdown that one of my favorite characters didn't die.
So I'm going to share a little bit from Bri and a little bit from Thomas O'Mara. Actually, since you're on the stuff with Thomas O'Mara, why don't I share Bri's and you can pull Thomas's up?
I actually have Art and Cindy.
Oh, good. And I also have the letter from Gary. So,
yes.
So Brian said, worst ending ever, total heartbreak. I'm officially done with The Walking Dead.
Oh,
I know.
You can listen to us and then you don't need to watch the show.
So my response was, that bums me out. I'm a bitter end kind of girl.
Ride or die.
Yeah, I'm going to be with it till the bitter end, man.
Hey, we hate watched Fear the Walking Dead for the first
for a long time.
Yeah, so I'm in this till the end.
But, I thought Brian made a good point. He said, I just couldn't believe that they hyped All Out War and then it was absolutely nothing. And I was like, that's a fair point. There was a lot of build-up for not very much. And it goes back to, would it have been more if people had understood Rick's thought process a little better?
Right, but for I remember 3 times Scott Gimple saying, there's going to be resolution. There's going to be, I don't feel there's resolution.
Oh, I felt like there was resolution.
There's too many loose ends, and loose ends make our ass itch.
Nah, I feel like there's resolution.
Agree to disagree.
Brian's with you, though. He says the whole of season 9 is going to be Negan trying to escape while he works with Rick against the Whisperers.
They've been teasing this kinder, gentler season 9. And I don't know if it made the podcast that we've already recorded, but we talked about how they're gun shy after season 7, episode 1. They lost a lot of viewers. They got a lot of flack for the gore and the violence and everything. And so I think, maybe we will see a kinder, gentler season 9. But I think a lot of it is in response to the backlash.
And that was Brian's point as well. He was like, I think all of the quote, too violent, end quote, BS got to the writers. And I think he's right.
Yep.
Which I think is unfortunate because, again, this is about the zombie apocalypse. Everyone dies.
Yep. I mean, everyone dies anyway. But in the apocalypse, let alone the zombie apocalypse, you're going to have a few headshots.
Let's see. Then let me get to Thomas's stuff. Let's see. So he gave the finale 4 out of 5 surrendering saviors. I'll save his rating for Fear until tomorrow. And he said, after all the hype about how great Fear was going to be, oh, no, never mind. We'll save that for tomorrow. And he said the only drawback to the finale was the predictability of Aaron and Oceanside showing up.
That's funny. See, and I didn't. You know what? I think I predicted it like a split second before it happened, but after you saying that Eugene had sabotaged the bullets, like when like when Eugene had Negan test fire the gun from his holster, from Eugene's holster, I was like, he totally sabotaged the bullets. And so that was the predictability for me for the episode. But yeah, I think I predicted the Oceanside a split second before it happened. So I agree, it was predictable, other than they let Negan live.
Oh, see, I felt like it was totally predictable.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like it was predictable from the last time we talked about them.
Yeah, yeah. But again, I think they could have cut that scene out of that episode and just had Oceanside show up. No explanation needed. Like, oh, Aaron convinced them to show up and they did. Hurrah.
Right.
So is that all from Bri?
That's all from Bri. That's all from Thomas. I'm going to look for my letter while you're pulling up the stuff from Biters.
So Cindy Patton contacted us on the Biters Facebook page and said, I'm a little bummed out by the finale. There was really good stuff, but there was really bad hokey stuff too. I agree, Cindy. Negan crying over Rick bringing up Carl? Really? Maggie, Daryl, and Jesus plotting against Rick and Michonne? Really? But I did cheer when Oceanside showed up to the party. I loved it when the bullets backfired on the Saviors. I loved when Rosita punched Eugene. There was good stuff. Maybe I need to rewatch and appreciate it more. Sigh. But hey, Fear was spectacular. Holy hell, I am all in. TWD 4.3 Weepy Negans out of 5. And her Fear the Walking Dead was 4.99 Dory like the fish out of 5.
Which will be clear to people who listen to the Fear podcast or who have watched it.
Right. And, I agree with every point that you had, Cindy. I think we have more than covered just about everything that you said in your post. And thank you for that. We love when people contact us.
Yeah,
so.
It was super nice to get quite a bit of feedback this episode. I was happy about that.
Yeah, it is the finale. So Art Mora contacted us private message on the Facebook page, which you can also do. I liked both the last episode of, he said WTF. I think he means TWD. I don't know if that was intentional or an autocorrect fail, but it made me laugh. So I liked both the last episodes of TWD and the premiere of Fear. Now it might just be the anticipation of the Whisperers brought on by the polls in both shows and a large herd on TWD. You know how they say those pleasure hormones are released in anticipation rather than the pleasure itself.
I agree.
I agree. The anticipation is always more exciting or terrifying than the actual act of whatever it is. So I agree, Art.
Well, I think he's right. I saw all of those various polls, and especially them talking about putting the heads of our heroes out on polls, and I thought, boy, that's foreshadowing Whisperer stuff in a big way.
Eee.
So
did you have the letter from Gary?
I do. So this is Gary, and he sent us an email through southgatemediagroup@gmail.com. Hey, Dianne and Marnell, I rate this 9 out of 10 unlikely hero awards, meaning Eugene. Positives: that Rick welcomed the saviors who surrendered and saved Negan to use as an example. That Eugene finally came through as an unlikely hero. Negatives: that a few want to go against Rick's plan for Negan. Other thoughts: still no info about the mysterious helicopter people. I just hope the Negan threat is truly over and the show's writers don't have him escape and start another oppressive group. I hope that the Fear the Walking Dead group haven't turned into bad guys and will join with Morgan's group after they see they are not a threat. Gary.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought up the helicopter.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that because we didn't see it this episode.
Well, and so here's the thing, right? So the helicopter, so Jadis, now Anne, is going to go live with the Alexandrians. Morgan is sort of at the junk heap for a while, but he doesn't know anything about the helicopter. What does that mean? What happens to the helicopter?
Yeah.
Because if, in fact, Jadis is one of their people, that's the rendezvous point.
So I don't know if I tried to I rewound on the rewatch and I couldn't tell when Morgan knocked on the door and told Jadis that she was welcome back in Alexandria. She was either reading in a red book or she was writing in a red book, and that seemed kind of significant for me for some reason. And I maybe if she was just reading, she was towards the end. Maybe if she was just reading, it's not that significant because, of course, we all just stand around and read,
Especially when the apocalypse is going on around our heads.
Right? But I'm wondering if she was, like, checking some sort of, like...
manifest.
Yeah, like some sort of standard operating procedures if you've missed your helicopter, rendezvous at this point.
And for some reason, I'm having a Men in Black moment. She missed her ride with the Men in Black.
And Gary, I do apologize for just saying,
No, Gary's not the person who was distraught about that, and I wish I could remember who it was, because, again, I think that he probably has said, "Peace out, sisters."
Well, we try not to, and now I can't.
No, we don't.
I can't not point it out now.
That's probably more the truth. We're more conscious of it now. I can't honestly say we try not to, because that is not fair.
Right. And we keep saying right a lot. But I kind of, I thought it was funny that Jadis was she kind of seemed so excited that, oh, Rick wants me in Alexandria when she's possibly got some helicopter crew coming to pick her up at some point. It was just, it was a very weird interaction there for someone who knows that there's bigger, better things out there.
Maybe that was her last chance.
Yeah, but she's got a pretty sweet apartment in that job.
But it gets pretty lonely, even if it is lovely.
True. That's true. Yeah. And, maybe she wanted to sculpt Rick still.
After.
After.
Well, I know this feels like a short podcast, but it's actually really not, because now I have to go splice all three pieces together.
Oh, that's awful.
It is awful. Fortunately, it shouldn't be too painful.
So we are going to attempt to podcast Fear tomorrow night.
And we're hoping that we do it in one fell swoop rather than three.
Right. And then Di will not be with us next week.
Correct.
Yes. Di will be having surgery.
I'm having my neck filleted open. And I actually was told that there is a risk of damage to my pharyngeal nerve. So if my voice is lower and huskier than it is right now, it's not my fault.
Ooh, that'll be sexy.
Right? I'm like, it could get lower and huskier. Are you not listening to me? Where have you been the last half an hour?
So I'll just have whiskey voice. That's fine.
Constantly.
That's fine.
I won't have to take up smoking. It will sound like I'm doing it anyway.
That's funny. So next week for the Fear the Walking Dead episode 2, we will be joined by the positively prolific podcaster Phil Perch from Capes and Lunatics.
Excellent.
Yes.
And yes to Phil's friend. Marnell is as cute as she sounds.
I'm girl next door cute. I'm not beautiful or anything.
You're pretty cute.
I'm adorbs. And Phil is insisting that we do the podcast via Google Chat.
Oh, you have fun with that.
Yeah. And I mean, if you do want to see what Di and I look like, we did do a Capes and Lunatics live episode that's on YouTube. So
well, and we are going to be doing the one about Infinity War. So
yes, because Phil and I have a bet about Infinity War and Black Panther.
And it sounds like I'll probably still be croaking a little bit for that one. So
right. And I will probably lose the bet. So
In which she has to review Infinity War as Sarah Palin.
Yes.
Because she does a wicked Sarah Palin impression.
So if I lose the bet, nobody loses the bet. Oh, but I think that is it for us. Are we still recording?
God, I need to go back and look at the right screen.
Oh, no.
Yes, in fact, we are.
Awesome. So, on that note,
just take it one dead day at a time. Almost!
Oh, wow. Maybe we should do 3-parters more often.
Sure, no problem. Oh my God, you won't say that when you're the one who has to splice them together.
No, and this has been a 2-night ordeal, and we still got one ahead of us.
Yeah,
so.
I was gonna say I'm gonna miss all of you, but I'm gonna be back tomorrow, so.
I can't wait to review Fear the Walking Dead, because I've watched it now.
I have to go do my rewatch as we speak, so splicing rewatch.
Alrighty.
All right,
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.